All right, how's it going, y'all? This is OXDF, and today I'm looking at Flustered from HackTheBox, and this is going to be a bit of a beyond root kind of thing. When I was exploring through the Squid proxy, looking at the localhost web server, I noticed that it returned when I looked at 127.127.1, but it didn't return when I looked at localhost. And so it's not at all important for solving the box, but I was kind of curious to know what was going on there, so I was going to dive in and figure it out. That's what these beyond roots are for. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in. So I've got, let's see, I guess the first thing to show here is I've got in Foxy proxy set up here this Flustered Squid proxy option, and I've given it the host, the port, and then the username and password that I found through the Fluster or the Gluster DB mount or Gluster mount. So I've got that set up, and you can see I'm pushing all traffic through Fluster Squid. And so if I load localhost, it works just fine. For what it's worth, if I load, let's see if I just go to Flustered, oops, that's going to Google. If I go to HTTP Flustered, you can see the main page that comes. So I'm definitely getting something different when I visit localhost. That's interesting. So if I come here and actually go to, I keep saying localhost, I mean 127, localhost, it fails. And it's talking about it failed to retrieve localhost. And when I first saw this, my thought was, oh, maybe the localhost isn't defined or something. But that's weird because like every Etsy host file has localhost defined. And then I looked a little closer, and you can see this is the importance of reading error messages. Connection to : 1 failed. : 1 is the equivalent of 127.120 or 127.0.0.1, but on IPv6. So that's interesting. So at this point, let's go ahead and jump in. I've got the root key. I've already rooted the box, and I've got the SSH key for root. And so the first thing I wanted to look at was what is resolving. And so it's clearly taking localhost and getting back the : 1. That sounds to me like it's an Etsy host problem. So let's jump in there and take a look, and we can see, unsurprisingly, 127.0.0.1 is defined as localhost, and so is : 1. Typically, when you read from the Etsy host file, the first match wins. So, if I come here and I do a curl of, let's do a curl -v of localhost, and I spell it right from here, you can see we're getting the NGINX default page. I wonder if does the -v let us see what IP we resolved? Yeah, so it is connecting to localhost port 127.0.0.1 is what it resolved to. So it looks at this point like everything's working okay there. But it's still worth testing. So like I guess the first thing we can do is let's see, hosts, vim tiny, Etsy host. What happens if I just, okay, let's make and paste, comment that out, and then so we have it. Let's just remove localhost from here. One thing I learned in playing with this is you have to restart Squid for the changes to take effect. And so Squid, I don't know why exactly. I guess Squid probably reads the host file once and then assumes it's not changing while you're working with it. So the Squid restart can actually take a long time, so I'm going to pause the video real quick while this happens. All right, I'm back and the Squid has restarted. We've removed that option, and now when we come in here and we do localhost, we get to NGINX. So that worked. That worked great. Let's go back up here though. We're not gonna. I don't like this option because the answer is, I'm sure there are things on the box that this is a pretty standard thing to have localhost mapped to that, and I think there's probably things on the box that might break if we just leave it like this. It's weird that it's not getting the first option. So the next thing we can try is what if we change the order? Does the order matter, or is it not is Squid basing it on something else? Is it preferring v6 over v4 in some way? So let's experiment. We change the order here. We'll do the restart again, and again it just takes like a minute, but it'd be a pretty boring minute to watch me. So I'm gonna pause again. Okay, we're back here. I just finished. Let's see. So and we can still get to localhost. That's working well. So it really starts to seem like Squid is actually reading the host file in reverse order. Let's move back up here and make sure if we put it back exactly how we found it. We're going to restart this again now, and we're going to check is is it broken? We expect this to be broken, right? Just to make sure that the tests we're running are right. I probably should have set it back to broken, made sure it was broken, then tried the reordering thing to really do a good scientific test. But I think if it shows this is broken here, we'll show that we'll have a good theory that the order really matters here. So I'm going to pause the video again while this waits for a restart. Okay, it's back, and refresh, and we're back to failing. So we've figured out, and again, I can't explain this. If anyone, I'd love if you can read a comment. I did a little bit of reading on this, but I have not been able to figure out exactly why. Why is Squid reading? It seems like Squid reads bottom up on the host file, where everything else reads top down. So I mean, sure, it's possible it just doesn't stop, and it just takes the last thing it finds, but that's unusual. So the other thing I wanted to look at is, so we looked at let's take a real quick at the NGINX configs. Enabled. So there's two sites here. App, which is, okay, hold on one second. I'm going to ln -s. Let's just do alias vim equals vim.tiny. We're root. We can do whatever we want. Yeah, that works. Okay, cool. So we will do vim on app. So this is the main web server for the site. It's listening on 80, and it is passing over to this app socket using WSGI params, and that's the socket that the Flask website is listening on. I'll put a link in the comments to the blog post about the whole box, but that makes sense. And so if we do vim of default, let's see, let's clean this up a little bit. We'll get rid of all these comments. That's not necessary. That's gone. That's gone. Looks a lot shorter and easier to read when we get rid of all the commented out stuff. And gone. Okay. So we have another server that's listening only on 127.0.0.1.80. Its root is www.html, and it's just returning files. So in the box, actually, we take advantage of this. What we'll do is actually go, yeah, we can write this, doesn't matter. When we go to var www.html, we find the app directory, and we're actually able, because it's just serving files on localhost, we're actually able to pull app.py and get the source code for the site, which is how we get a shell in the box. So let's see. What I wonder, I haven't actually tried this before. Vim default. Can we make this listen on v6 as well? I think it's like this. I think we add another listen directive. This is a bit on the fly, so if this doesn't work, maybe I'll just delete it if it doesn't work. But I think if we just do that, we're going to tell this same server that it listens on 127.80 and on, oops, not on everything 80, on 180. So that, let's see if that works. We'll do a service, NGINX, restart, and we'll come in here, and that worked. And so I think what's happening is we're still resolving, we're still weirdly inversely resolving our host file, getting back : : 1, but now when we go get : 1, we get the localhost page. We can check this by now. Let's try our curl again, see if that works. Whoa. Curl. Shoot, do I remember how to do this? : 1. Does that work? Cool, let's do it with a let's do it with a -v so we can see if it shows us the port it's connect. Yeah, so look, you can see right here, connection to host : 1 intact. If we do localhost to localhost intact, let's see, do we have up here? Yeah, so it's connecting to host right there. Oh no, that's the wrong thing. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Connected to localhost port 1. So that is working. Now I had to specify v6 here. If I just leave this as v4, or don't put this here, it's going to connect, I think, to the. No, it did connect to the v6 one there too. So, all right. Well, anyway. So again, is this really important? No, it didn't help me. It didn't necessarily help me solve the box. But this is the kind of stuff, like once you root this box, you're root, right? So go figure out how these services work. Go see, You want to see how your NGINX might change? Change it. I mean, be a little bit cautious if you feel like especially like if you're in a free lab with lots of other people playing at the same time. But, often for the boxes that are more than, not in the first week or two, there aren't that many people playing them, especially if you're in a VIP or in a Dedi spawn environment, where it's just you're basically the only one there. Like, play with it, change things around, mess with it, learn. So, yeah, thanks for sticking around till the end, and I'll talk to you next time. Jumping back in for a quick add-on here, I thought this was really cool. I pulled up the Squid source code on GitHub, and let's just search for hosts in here. And right here in the source tool CC, we see there's a function called parse etc hosts. So let's jump over into that. Oops, that's not. Let's see if we can click and go straight to it. I guess maybe not. All right, so we're on line 917. Parse etc hosts. Okay, here we go. So let's run through this code real quick. It's going to make sure that the path exists. It's going to open the etc host path. And then here we come down. Let's see, this is if it doesn't work, that's some errors, if Windows, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we're going to do this fgets, which it tells us is reading over each line. We're going to trust these comments to be pretty accurate here. It's chopping things after the comment marker, or if the first thing is a comment, it's ignoring the line. It's then getting this LT pointer, some pointers. Let's see. It finds the first white space in this case, the buffer. If it doesn't exist, we have an empty line, so we keep going. Otherwise, it then puts a null there to terminate it. So it replaces the space with the null. And now this LT thing, the host, this address points to the front of the buffer, is now a string that null terminates at where the space used to be. So now you have the host. The address is the IP address. And then it sets this LT pointer 1 past that. So now we've kind of chopped off the address, set that as address, and now we've moved on to the rest of the string. And we're going to loop over while finding the next white space in the string. And let's see, we're going to basically do the same thing. We're going to set that white space as a null byte. So now we have a pointer at the front and a pointer at the end that's null, chopping off that single word. We're going to do some checking, but eventually here we use that technique. And what that allows us to do is we can now loop, after we handle that, we can loop back to the front, set ourselves, 1 past that null space we created, and get the next white space, let's see, right here, and continue looping so that we get everything on the line, all with the same address, because the address, you have one IP followed by a bunch of hosts. So it's doing a bunch of stuff, but it's basically passing each of those into host and address into this IP cache add array from hosts function. Let's see, maybe we make this a little bigger. Yeah. So what we can do with that is go back up here and search within this repository for, could not find anything. That's not what I expected. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay. Not sure what happened the first time. And we see right here, that's functions being defined here in ipcache.cc. So we will control V and search for that. And here we go. And so this is taking in those 2 strings, the name and the IP address. It's got this idea of an object. I don't know much about it, but it says, it's an IP cache entry object, which is calling I. And there's some error checking stuff down here, but then we have ipcache.get on name. And so it's going to fetch it. Presumably, it's going to go into the cache and it's going to get out anything associated with that name. So in this case, if our name is localhost, it's going to go into localhost. The first time it does, as it's parsing our host file, the first time it does this, it's not going to find anything. And so we will just come down here. We'll skip this whole section. We'll come in here and we'll create a new cache entry for localhost. The address will be push unique IP. The flags will be from host true, and it will add it and lock it. Cool. Then we go back to the previous screen we're parsing through, and we get to the line where it's IP, where it's : 1. And the first thing is localhost. And so we'll pass back into here. And now we go call this get cache on localhost, and we get back the one we had from the first time. And so we check, is the flags from localhost true? And the answer is going to be yes. So yes. So we unlock that entry. And now we're jumped out of here. And since it's unlocked, now we're going to create a new one for that name, and we're going to push it, push unique. I don't know exactly what that means. But I'm guessing this ends up actually overwriting the previous one, and it's adding the entry and locking the entry. And that's what this unlock allows us to do. Now, if that had been in the in the cache for some other reason, not because it was in the host file, then it wouldn't overwrite that. It would just stay locked. And I'm guessing this would probably fail and return somehow. Or actually, no, it would then check and see if it's locked, and it would return 1 because it would, it's locked. Maybe? I'm not. Let's see. If it's not in the host file, yeah, so then it would go here and it would say, is it locked? And it would say yes, and so it would not because it's locked. So I think, again, I'm not 100% sure on this, but just looking through this, it kind of makes sense that we are seeing it, basically creates the entry the first time, and then it comes in here and unlocks it and creates the second entry. And if it's doing it uniquely, then it's just overwriting itself. And so whatever's last in the host file is what's going to show up. So anyway, I thought this was kind of interesting. Not definitive, but again, don't be scared to jump into GitHub and look at source code sometimes. See if you can fumble your way through it. So with that, I will end this video. Thanks for hanging around to the end, and I'll talk to you next time.